Random House Audio presents The Whole World Over by Julia Glass. Read for you by Denis O'Hare. Part 1. A Piece of Cake. The call came on the 29th of February, the one day in 4 years when, according to antiquated custom, women may openly choose their partners without shame. As Greenie checked her email at work that morning, a small pink box popped up on the screen. Carpe diem, ladies. Scotland, according to her cheery service provider, passed a law in 1288 that if a man refused a woman's proposal on this day, he must pay a fine. Anything from a kiss to money that would buy her a silk dress or a fancy pair of gloves. If I weren't hitched already, thought Greenie, I would gladly take rejection in exchange for a lovely silk dress. Oh, for the quiet, sumptuous ease of a silk dress. Oh, for the weather in which to wear it. Yet again, it was sleeting. Greenie felt as if it had been sleeting for a week. The sidewalks of Bank Street were glazed with ice, so that walking George to school had become a chore of matronly scolding and pleading. Walk, honey, please walk. What did I say? Did I say walk? Like most 4-year-old boys, George left his house like a pebble from a slingshot, careening off parked cars, brownstone gates, fences placed to protect young trees, apparently not just from urinating dogs. Greenie was shaking off the ill effects of what she called VD whiplash. VD as in Valentine's Day, an occasion that left her in its wake, if business was good, vowing she would never again bake anything shaped like a heart or put so much as a drop of carmine dye in a bowl of buttercream icing. As if to confirm her fleeting disenchantment with all that stood for romantic love, she and Alan had had another of their fruitless, bitter face-offs Greenie could never seem to avoid, and which, in their small apartment, she feared would awaken and worry George. This one had kept her up till 2 in the morning. She hadn't bothered to go to bed since Tuesday was one of the days in which she rose before dawn to bake brioche, scones, cinnamon rolls, and, Tuesdays only, a coffee cake rich with cardamom, orange zest, and grated ginger root. A cunningly savory sweet that left her work kitchen smelling like a fine Indian restaurant. A brief, invigorating change from the happily married scents of butter, vanilla, and sugar, the fragrance, to Greenie, of ordinary life. Dead on her feet by 10 in the morning, she had forgotten the telephone message she'd played back the evening before. Greenie dear, I believe you'll be getting a call from a VIP tomorrow. I won't say who, and I won't say why, but I want it on the record that it was I who told him what a genius you are. Though I just now realize that he may spirit you away. Idiot me. What was I thinking? Call me the minute you hear from the guy. Bye-ya. Pure Walter. Irritating, affectionate, magnanimous, coy. Walter was the owner and gadabout host, not the chef, he couldn't have washed a head of lettuce to save his life, of a retro-American tavern that served high cholesterol, high-in-the-food-chain meals with patriarchal hubris. Aptly, if immodestly named Walter's Place, felt like a living room turned pub. On the ground floor of a brownstone down the street from Greenie's apartment, it featured 2 fireplaces, blue check tablecloths, a fashionably weary velvet sofa, and, Board of Health be damned, a roving bulldog named the Bruce. Greenie wasn't wild about the Eisenhower-era foods with which Walter indulged his customers. Indulgence, she felt, was the province of dessert, but she had been pleased when she won the account. Over the past few years, she had come to think of Walter as an ally rather than a client. Except for the coconut cake, filled with Meyer lemon curd and glazed with brown sugar, most of the desserts she made for Walter were not her best or most original, but they were exemplars of their kind. Portly, solid citizen desserts, puddings of rice, bread, and noodles, sweets that the pilgrims who had scraped together their prototypes would have bartered in a Mayflower minute for Greenie's blood orange mousse, pear ice cream, or tiny white chocolate eclairs. Walter had also commissioned a layer cake he asked her to create exclusively for him. Everybody expects one of those death by chocolate things on a menu like mine, but what I want is massacre by chocolate, execution by chocolate, firing squad by chocolate. So Greenie had stayed up till morning to birth a 4-layer cake so dense and muscular that even Walter, who could have benched a Shetland pony, dared not lift it with a single hand. It was the sort of dessert that appalled Greenie on principle, but it also embodied a kind of uber-prosperity, flaunting the potential heft of butter, that protean substance as wondrous and essential to a pastry chef as fire had been to early man. Walter christened the cake Apocalypse Now. After it was on his menu for a week, he bet her a lobster dinner that before the year was out, Gourmet would request the recipe, putting both of them on a wider culinary map. If that came to pass, Greenie would surrender to the vagaries of fleeting fame, but right now the business ran as smoothly as she could have hoped. She had a diligent assistant and an intern who shopped, cleaned, made deliveries, and showed up on time. The amount of work they all shared felt just right to Greenie. She could not have taken an order for one more tiny eclair without enlarging the enterprise to a degree where she feared she would begin to lose control. Alan said that what she really feared was growing up, taking her lifelong ambition and molding it into a business with a capital B. Greenie resented his condescension. If business with a capital B was the goal of growing up, what was he doing as a private psychotherapist working out of a bedroom that should have belonged to George, who slept in an alcove off their living room meant for a dining room table? This was the sort of bickering that passed too often now between them. Stubbornly, Greenie refused to back down for the sake of greater domestic harmony or to address the underlying dilemma. The overlying dilemma, that much was clear. Through the past year, as Greenie began to turn away clients, Alan was losing them. His schedule had dwindled to half-time, and the extra hours it gave him with George did not seem to console him. 2 years away from 40, Alan had reached what Greenie privately conceived of as the Peggy Lee stage in life. Is that all there is? Yet only Greenie knew how dark he could become, how resistant to humor and warmth. When he was with friends, his argumentative nature was his strength, but alone with Greenie he fell prey to defensiveness and nocturnal nihilism. She had known this before they married, but she had assumed this aspect of his psyche would burn off, like cognac set aflame in a skillet. Next year they would be married 10 years, and it had not. In their first years together, she had loved the wakefulness they shared late at night. After sex, Alan did not tumble into sleep the way most men claimed they could not resist doing. They would talk about their days, their dreams, both sleeping and waking, their notions on the fate of mankind. When it came to worldly matters, the voice of doubt would be Alan's, mourning or raging that genocide would never end, that presidents would never be moral, that children would always be abducted by men who would never be caught. But he was invariably passionate, and back then Greenie saw hope in that passion. He loved Greenie expressively, eloquently, in a way she felt she had never been loved. When they had been sleeping together, or not sleeping together, nearly every night for a month, she asked, "Why do you suppose we're like this? Why can't we just go to sleep like the rest of the exhausted people around us?" They were lying in Alan's bed. He said, "Me, I think too much. Not a good thing." "Why? Why is that not good?" "It wears down your soul. It's like grinding your spiritual teeth. Dreaming is the healthy alternative. Even nightmares once in a while. Sometimes a nightmare is like a strong wind sweeping through a house." Greenie had noticed that every morning Alan wrote his dreams in a leather book the size of a wallet. "What about me?" she said. "Do I think too much?" "Not you." He pulled her closer. "With you, I can only imagine that some part of your waking soul just can't bear to see another magnificent day in the life of Greenie Duquette come to an end." "That's very poetic," said Greenie, "but it's malarkey." "When I'm with you," he said, "I love not getting to sleep." He kissed her, and then they did fall asleep. The next day, on the phone with her mother, she said she'd met an incredible man, that she had fallen in love. Her mother teased her that it wasn't the first time, and Greenie said yes, this was true, but she had a hunch it would be the last. When the loaves and cakes she had baked sat cooling on racks, Greenie filled the larger sink with all the pans and whisks, cups and spoons and mixing bowls. Sherwin would show up later to wash them, but Greenie wiped down the counters herself, several times a day. She had made this place a boiler.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?